Welcome everybody to this workshop with Hamish Ames. He's currently a senior associate environment artist at Sledgehammer Games. Currently we're going to be talking about the hybrid trims that he's done a tutorial about, and he's going to introduce us to the whole concept and do a little bit of a workshop around it today. Just a couple of reminders for this session. As always, you can ask questions in the chat if you wanted to. Just make sure that they're between brackets and questions. So always make sure that your message starts with an opening bracket, question, closing bracket, and then the question itself. So we can easily go through the entire chat and find it. Hamish is going to find some appropriate moments for where he can stop and look at some questions. And then we might even do a little bit of a Q&A session behind it if we have some leftover questions too. So yeah, that's it from me. Take it over, Hamish.
Thank you, Tim. So hello everybody. Thank you for joining. Yeah, like I said, I'll try and keep an eye out for those questions as well. But yeah, I'll find time to jump in there and ask them. So a lot of you may have seen already my hybrid trim sheet tutorial. If not, you can just grab it over at my store. There's a bunch of other ones as well. But it pretty much covers about this escalator asset and how I went about making it with a hybrid trim sheet. So what this session today is, it's a bit of what this tutorial, like this PDF tutorial for this escalator, is more of a supplementary thing to what we're going to speak of today. Let's jump into how into Blender. I'll just sort of start to break down how I actually made it and how I approached it. This is the asset in Blender. And how I first went about it was obviously every tutorial is gonna be the same. Is reference. You're gonna start with an idea, and you're gonna have other ideas and everything. So just go on a reference dive. That's what I do. That's what I recommend doing. And the difference between, say, a hybrid trim or a trim sheet asset to a normal asset that you may be more accustomed with, of the everything's just put into the 0 to 1, is that you want to really plan out what's going to be on your texture, just like you would for a regular trim. But yeah, so we just got to really sort of plan it out in such a way. So I'll go over how I kind of break down those. So originally my idea was to have an aluminium boat, of sort of an asset I wanted to do for a while. And then when Tim's asked me to do this session, I thought, great, this will be a good example piece to do for hybrid trims. It's a kind of large assets. I think like roughly it's about 5 meters long, which it's quite big. It's got the trailer on there. It's got it all on there. I was thinking, oh, could we fit it on? Originally, I was thinking this aluminium boat, but I soon realized that an aluminium boat might not be the greatest in terms of the greatest asset to have in a game, and also there's not really much different material variations. It's all like this would be like a different metal. It's not like an aluminium trailer, but it's all metallic objects. If this was in a game, it would be pretty hard to light. It would be hard to put in there because it's essentially just one big shiny metal object that just is probably not going to read well at a distance. And then it got me thinking when I went on that reference dive, just trying to find reference of the fiberglass boats. With the added bonus of we've got all these different colors that we could do. We could essentially have the same boat in our game or environment or whatever, and have the same boat but with different material instances, and just shade the boat different colors. For example, we could have essentially like this scene I really liked. It was just from Google Maps. We've got a whole lineup of different boats. All the trailers are the same, but you could essentially have just different variations of the same texture, but with different material instances. So that's when, I pivoted over to the fiberglass boats. So again, yeah, when you're in that reference stage, just keep it loose, keep your ideas coming. This was one of our main references, was like this video I found. This person he bought this boat and he's doing it all up, and it gave great reference of different angles, and he stripped the whole thing down, and then just, yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, YouTube, Google, everywhere, just sort of finding reference. So I guess what I was going to say before, but I was a bit distracted, I'm sorry, was this asset. It's not a hero prop. It's something that you're going to have in a game as a set dressing piece. The player can get up to it. It still looks fine from quite close up with that texture density. It could be used as a cover piece, like the player could shoot over it or something, or hide behind it. But because it's using the trim sheet, you can't get that real localized wear and tear. Like there's different techniques you can do, but we can't really just have like some grime around the cleats here. We've got a bit of grime build up underneath this rubber strip, but I'll run over why we can get that later on. So that's kind of a trade-off between a full unique asset and a hybrid trim. Like, you do have to make some compromises, but at the end of the day, this asset's using like one texture set, and the glass is going to be a different shader, obviously. So it's kind of a trade-off between a not so unique but still unique enough asset, and then compared with a totally unique but it's using a lot of texture sets just to get the required text density. Your tech artist is not going to be happy if you come with like just a set dressing prop that's got 3 or 4 textures on it. So yeah, we're good. So that's what this asset is. It's sort of just that a set dressing piece. It could be, yeah, used in an environment and whatnot. So yeah, so back to the references and how I go about planning out what I want on a trim. Typically, I just have a notepad next to my keyboard here. But for this, I decided to come to Microsoft Word and have something that you can actually visually see. So this is just one big brainstorm, really. It doesn't have to be everything that makes it onto those textures. It doesn't have to be everything that we need on the boat, and what necessarily will be there. But it's just a brainstorm of what could go on there, what we might need. So we've got the fiberglass exterior. That we definitely need that. But then I also saw this this here. We've got the fiberglass boat, and they've got the interior of it is a different color. I thought that was really cool. It's a cool little contrast. It was kind of the sort of detail that if it didn't make it in, it would be like, oh well, it's fine. I could just use the exterior for the interior and it'd probably be fine. But I did want to have that if I had room. So we also have like the metal trim out in the windows, some chrome strips, rubber strips. Got like a white rubber, but a lot of the other ones have like a black rubber around it. Got seats, ropes, steering wheel, dash instruments, throttle, logo, text. Then move on to a trailer. We've got like the old metal of a Gav. There's like some of these old metal trailers here. And just really just brainstorming what will go on there. So we've got the number plate, the bolt rollers, bolts, lights, yeah, just really brainstorming all sorts of stuff. And now a lot of these, like I saw like all this some really cool stuff. We really, I didn't go into making a real destroyed boat. I didn't really want to venture that far, and it'd be quite tricky to do, to be honest, to actually fit that in. But yeah, lots of these references. There's one from Last of Us, similar sort of a boat that they've done. So yeah, so just getting on there. So once we've got this list essentially, that's when I'll go in and I'll start doing a bit of a tests in Blender. So that's the completed boat, but that's the end. So let's go to the start, I guess. So first up, I'm really just testing. My first actually where I went to was trying to get the shape. I'd never really modeled a boat before. I was really just trying to get the shape. I think this was like a fair bit into my exploration, just trying to model it and get it all happening. It's all pretty not very nice. Geo wise in that sense, like the versions before this would have been a lot more crude even. Sidestepping from the like hybrid trim thing, like a little trick that I try and help with for like more complex shapes like this. So we've got the curves coming this way, we've got curves coming underneath, coming this way. Is just sort of model it, try and get those edge loops sort of working how you kind of want them to. And I use the subdivision surface modifier here to really sort of smooth out those shapes. It's not saying that will be final, but we can take this sort of bad looking geo, you can apply the sub D, and then we've got the sort of the cleaner version, and then from there we can just come in and just delete the excess ones. Obviously this is going to be a lot too high, like very high poly. We can just come in and just delete some of these edges that we don't need. And then essentially we've got the sort of nicer curves again, without having to try and manually do it. So yeah, so it's just a little thing I just wanted to show you how I did that. But essentially this first step is just experimenting, getting the boat to sort of work out what sort of sizes we're going to need for trims, like, because at first I didn't know really how much of the exterior we'd need on the trim sheet. Like this is what I ended up with, but with which I think is a meter and 30 centimeters totally. But I didn't know that at first. I had no idea. But yeah, so it's more so just getting the first sort of initial blockouts done and ideas out. If we look at the trailer, I knew that was going to be really simple. It's just pretty blocky. I didn't really need to go into too much depth in that because I knew that all this sort of metal, I could get away with using the same one little bit on a trim sheet here. So how I worked out about the exterior fiberglass exterior was that I could, once I sort of worked out my size, my block out and everything, we can see now that like this is on a roughly about a meter higher. I knew that I wanted to bring in one of the rubber strips around the edges, which is a kind of a natural divider. We can actually have like the UV theme cut off there and start again up here without really noticing it. So I think I've even got just a block out there. So I sort of knew that, yep, that's how much I need. And yeah, so with the 512 texture density, that means a 2048 texture is 4 meters square. As you imagine, it's at 2048 divided by 512 is 4, so that's 4 meters square. So we know that we've got 4 meters to work with, really, in both directions. So that's when I come in. I don't really start off worrying too much about the actual UVs itself, but if we were to add a plane, let's snap it. So if we have a 4 meter plane, we can just unwrap that, and we know straight away that is that is going to be our exact text density that we want. The exact we can almost view this as our texture sheet. We can even assign, just to sort of really show that it is, we can assign that texture to it, and then we know that that 4 meter plane does represent our textures. So from that we can even start planning our trim sheet part of the texture. If we come down and snap this to a meter, we know that we've now got 1 meter. We could have a meter of fiberglass here. And if we come back to our UVs, that's pretty much already UV'd for us. We've got it for the got the 1 meter on the UV sheet. We can sort of cut it up as well. It's like how I did it really for this one would have been that I probably came down and saw it with the trailer metal. I knew that I wasn't very big. I could probably get away with not much. I think I ended up getting about like 30 centimeters of trailer metal. I think that's just over 10 centimeters tall. So I knew I could bring it up and over and down and still have it pretty unique. And yeah, just literally just snapping it. We can even come and use the edge length and really snap it to where we need if we need. And we know that these different sections are those same sizes because we're still on that 4 meter plane. So that's how I sort of break those down. I also use a very helpful add-on, which is a texture density checker, it's a free Blender add-on. We can set our texture size to 2048, set our texture density to 512 or 5.12 because that's going by pixels per centimeter. But yeah, and we can just get this to say we'll scale it down, set this, and it will get it back. I'm not actually sure why it's a bit bigger right now, but it isn't. I don't know what's going on, but there we go, I think. Well, anyway, that should be. Alright. There we go. So yeah, so it's putting in there. So, but that's more so for like later on we're doing the unique pieces when we're doing it. So this will help us. I usually like to stay in a 3D space without worrying too much about the actual UV space too much. So yeah, so we can come back to the trim sheet to sort of see where how I kind of did break it up. We see that that's essentially is what I did. I worked out that I needed the 1 meter of I think it was a bit more than that, 1.3 meters of the exterior, and then I realized I did have room to put that. The interior in. The trailer metal, I really didn't need too much. That's why I was able to fit the whole trailer essentially on most of this, and it was just the unique elements. And then the rest was my. We'll just hide these for now. The rest I knew I needed some rope. I needed some rubber. I needed the chrome strips around the metal around the windows. This one's got like the bit of normal information in there just to sort of normal information. To make, I think I pulled that for some reference. We've also got the just plain no normal information metal as well, because I find that to be handy, just to not have any, because then we can actually map things just to it without having to worry about any baked edges or anything. It's very, very handy to have. And then just these seats. So I've realized that we don't need to have, we don't actually need to have 4 meters of these tiling elements when it's, I did just grab that version right. So we don't really need 4 meters of it when it's something like a rope or some rubber or cables or anything like that that we can just have tiling and it's not going to be noticeable. So that's why I've now only got the 2 meters, because if we come to here, I've got this rope. We can see it's just, I've just cut the UVs up. If we select just the UVs, I'll turn off edge length. But if we select just the UVs, you see I've sort of made a cut in there, which it is hidden. There might be a more better example. Yeah, so I've made a cut here, but you don't really notice it at all. It's rope. It's naturally quite noisy, and to have that, you could even get away with even say 1 meter of it on the trim. You don't need the full 2 meters, and the space we saved we can use for other things. So with the unique, especially assets like this, it's really trying to be as space saving as possible, but without spending too much time getting bogged down with it as well. So try and be as optimal as possible, but don't worry too much. If that makes sense. So what I'll do then is, why I hid these bits up here before is these came after. These bits were bits that I had. I've done all my unique stuff. I modeled them out, UV'd them, and then I had space left over. So that's what these became later. So it's which I will cover later. If we think we look at this, you can see that I did use that 4 meter square here. That's probably the remnants of that original plane that I had then. So if we look at it like that, if we imagine this is actually, I know this is our 3D space, but if we look at this 4 meter square here as our UVs, then we know that we've got essentially this much space left on our UV sheet for unique items. So that's how I kind of visualize the breaking down of that. And yeah, same with I didn't really speak on the chair, but the seat fabric, I knew I could get, I only needed to do one chair. I didn't need a whole lot of a fabric. That's essentially using the same UVs, and then the outside as well. It's kind of, it's fabric, so you can kind of cut it and have these sort of seams in there. I did actually put that seam in the actual texture of it, running down I think one of these edges. So if you cut it up, then it will kind of look like it was sort of how it would have been made in real life. I did sort of add this tear in this one and put like a texture behind, just to sort of, just to make it look a bit different from the other one. Just which helps that they are the same. They are using the same textures, but just different tricks. That maybe you could push this one in a bit. I don't know. Like, just, I'm really just randomly pushing things right now, but you could totally just, I don't know, make it look different. By just changing up a bit. The angle's different. I've put a rip in here. That's how you can kind of get away with using not as much texture space. You don't have to have everything unique. You can just sort of change it up a bit to have it look like that. I will stop now and have a look at Discord to see if there's any questions at the moment. Thank you, Tim, for sharing the text density thing. Question, do you plan to models via what you need to be using on a trim sheet? The other way around, a bit of both. Do you plan your models via... do I plan on models? Kind of. More so, I go into, because it's a hybrid trim, it's actually made for that model. It's it's a unique model, but just the way I texture it is using a trim sheet approach. So I do go into it via having a model in mind, and then I'll look at some things and think, yes, that will need to be unique, or no, that won't need to be unique. Like the motor itself, I wanted that technically you could probably do that on a trim sheet, but I knew that I wanted that to be a unique thing. It is using some mirrored atlases and stuff, but it is essentially unique. Same with like the rollers and stuff and the wheels. So it's sort of just trying to work out what I can use as trim and what I don't, what I can't use. That's like what I can't really get away with. If that answers the question. So yeah, so I guess it is a bit of both. It's kind of, yeah. So that was the only question. Did that sort of answer it, Nikita? If you're still here? Bit of a roundabout way. I think she's ducked out. But anyway, so that is how I sort of plan those. Still here, and yes, I did help. Awesome, thank you. So yeah, so once I do start with those, with the trim part of the textures, and then that's when I'll go in and I'll start just playing around. I'll start my my low poly modeling of stuff. Very simple. Like I didn't I'm not the greatest modeler of all time, but like I'm very much a fan of the bevel modifier, the bevel workflow, and then just really just very simple modeling. Bevel it, call that your high poly, and bake it down. Most of the time, it gets me where I need to go. And yeah, originally I wasn't sure if I was going to get the motor on this texture set, so it was more so again running tests. I think I did a very basic block out of this of the motor and the biggest parts of it, and then tried to lay it out with that 512 text density, and just tried to so we can just like maybe this was my initial model, and I put it on here, and I just did my text density and just tried to see what happened if I laid it out. Obviously I still did stretch them out a bit, and some of these I would have manipulated, but it's more so just seeing what I could fit in and what I can't. And I was surprised that even at the correct text density, I could fit it all. I could fit it all in here. So you see, I've all straightened all those UV shells. So straightening UV shells is really going to help you for a lot of this sort of stuff. It's a good practice in all 3D modeling. If you don't do it, then I guess look into doing it. There's add-ons as well I use to sort of straighten UV shells. This text tools is what I usually use. Just is select it and rectify, and it will straighten it out. Whereas this one, I didn't 100%, but I did actually when I unwrapped it. When I unwrapped these, I don't know what's going on. These would have been, for example, like that. I just come in, align Y. But yeah, you get the idea, I guess. Straighten those UVs, get them all in there nicely. When they're going to be straight, they're going to be nice and easy to work with, and you're going to get a lot more room. So just like with the trim part, I definitely work from biggest to smallest, trying to get my biggest stuff on there and then see. But then probably trumping that would be more what would be important. I wasn't sure I'd get the motor on. I thought that there could have been a chance that had to be a separate texture, quite a unique model. But yeah, like I said, I was surprised that I could actually fit it on there. All this other stuff's not very pretty, not very special. It's all very standard. The steering wheel as well. I totally didn't need to have that on there, even as a like as a, like a rounded object. But it kind of, you get to a point where yes, you want to be as optimal as possible, but you also don't want to spend half a day worrying about, is this going to be optimal? Is it the best it can be? Sometimes like your optimization is time. Just trying to, sometimes you just have to think like I did this column as well. I could have just mapped that to that's unique, but I totally could have mapped that to these the trailer metal, and it would have been fine. But again, after every project, you probably think there was 1,000 things you could have or would have done differently had you done it again. And yeah, the wheel as well. Again, it's separate to the trim sheet thing, but as we can see, there's another little tip I like to do, which totally contradicts the steering wheel here. But for the wheel, things like this are really good if you can model it as a straight object rather than rounded. If it was round and I was trying to texture it, I'd have to have like rounded alphas with all the tire information on there. But instead, I've used the modifier system that Blender's got to make it so it's flat. We can see it's got a few polys in there to make sure when we do use a simple deform, that it actually deforms into a round tire, and it deforms our UVs around, which is going to help us a lot. Helps when we unwrap it, as we can see here. It's just unwrapped to this top bit of a texture, and then yeah, when our asset is finished at this stage, I'm showing you with the textures on there, but at this stage there's no textures. But yeah, so it helps us to unwrap it, and then when it comes time to when it's the finished asset, we can just duplicate this, apply the simple deform, and we've essentially got a tire. We can drop it down, put it on our tire, and we've got a tire. That's all. Yeah, sitting nicely on UVs. Not always easy to texture and easy to iterate on as well if we need. So clicking around the buttons. So yeah, so this is just, I just went through. I've got this all exploded. I would have built it originally. I don't. I think I actually lost this file when I started working on it. I actually lost the original stuff, but it would have been originally just modeled together, and I've exploded it for the baking. You can, sure we all know that we can actually not have things exploded and still bake in Marmoset and Substance Painter if you have them named correctly. I still like to have it exploded. Just to, for me, it makes it a bit easier. I don't have to worry too much about naming. I do like to have names proper. I don't like cube 1, cube 2, cube 100 in here. I do like to have them named, but I also don't want to worry about having them perfectly named. I'd rather just explode them out and texture them like that. So once I have everything kind of modeled in my low poly, again, I'll just typically I'll just go through and duplicate stuff out in my I'll just duplicate it, add bevel modifiers, and it's all very, very simple. Bake that down, texture it, and you've got your your unique parts of the model. So from here, I would, and then so that's the low poly, high poly sort of stuff. That's all good. I've got those. For the trim sheet part of it, as we see here, the trim high poly and the trim low poly is exactly the same. I don't, depending on the asset, I think the escalator I did actually bake down a lot of information that was modeled in, but for this I didn't bake down any information in here. Not only because it is pretty simple, like the fiberglass and stuff. I think there was some information baked into this bit, but I like to have a lot of when it's in trim sheet. I like to have a lot of control to be able to add stuff in Substance Painter instead of having to rebake if I don't like something. I could add, like in my high poly, I could have added some various details in here, but should I need to change the position, I'd then have to rebake something. Whereas if it was a high information in Painter, which I can talk on later if we want to, I can just change that in a texture, export the textures again, and then it's there. So that's why I don't add much or any, in this case, baked information into the high poly of the trim sheet if I don't have to. If it was a complex thing, then sure, but it's a lot quicker for me to do in Substance Painter. So literally for the high poly of that is just simple duplicate, and if it's sitting on top of itself exactly, which it would be if you just duplicate it, then you're not going to have any problem baking that down. I did just check. Yes, Tim said about reducing anti-aliasing artifacts. Yeah, so straight. That's like, yeah, with a straightening of UV shows, totally good habit to be in. Do I have any tips on combining trim sheets of uniquely unwrapped assets within a scene? You mentioned that with trim set rise uniqueness and quality a little sometimes as these students that try this approach, but the assets look a little out of place when you attach assets beside them. What other techniques could use by variation if given trim sheets in use? So that kind of Polygon's question kind of is, I guess, maybe more trim sheet rather than unique trim sheet. This trim sheet, this hybrid trim sheet is, I'd say I'd only use it for this boat and or variations of this boat. So you could definitely take this and you may have a color variation, but then for that color variation, you could actually have a variation that had the engine in the hull inside, like some of the reference had. You could have a different shape. You could have all sorts. So that's probably all I'd use a hybrid trim sheet. You could, like in theory, still use it for other things. You could use this metal for something else, but it gets messy. Like if you've got an asset that's like say you had a fence, but that fence was using aluminium boat underscore 01 texture. So I'd probably, for the hybrid trims, I'd probably keep those textures just for those assets or ones that do that. But then to your sacrificing uniqueness and quality, so if you had a hybrid trim sheet asset next to a completely unique asset, I'd say that a lot of the times that looks out of place is because the texture density is probably very different. When we're doing something like this, we're really trying to push as much out of it as possible. We don't have much room to really go much higher text density. So a lot of like all these pieces, they don't go under, but they're all 512, and they might, some of them may have like gone up a little, but so I'd say that that's might be where you might get some discrepancies if you've got like using 512 texture density for this whole asset, and then you've got a toolbox that's like got a 4K texture on it, and it's looking really beautiful. That might look out of place. So it's really trying to balance those out. Really trying to try and get those to look like that. But because it is like a trim sheet for this one model, we can do things to try and make it look as unique as possible, which I'll cover a bit more in like the texturing side, but trying to add like some grime or wear where we can, and just trying to make it as unique as we can. Hopefully that answered the question. So the key that we just said question, I think UV channel. Yes, so definitely like a second UV channel to change it up would help. And also I've got that other tutorial about the UV masks. So definitely check that out as well, because that's also another way to add uniqueness to a trim sheet asset, is the second UV channel. Seeing videos. Yeah, that's totally right, Tobias, as well. You can definitely put decals over there and change it up too. So where were we? We were we've got our uniques, kind of, yeah. So we had our low poly modeled, we had our trim sheet part modeled, and then what these bits were these for space left over. So if we select everything, we see it's all nicely UV'd on there. We've got our trim sheet stuff. So as we can even see, this top stuff, it's kind of filling up the space that was left over. Our trim sheets really hugging the edges, and everywhere I could fill it all in. I still start off with trying to line it up at the bottom. I probably even started with the motor, the biggest piece up here, and really just trying to stack all those little islands in there, and really trying to make room. And then I got to a point of they were all done. I wasn't sure what else I could add. That probably could have been something. Could have had a fishing rod or something in there that maybe could have been in there. But I had this leftover room. So what I did was I just put a plain. I put literally it's got a plane, put it in there, UV unwrapped it to the 512 texel density, and then I knew that I had this plane in Substance Painter to add whatever I wanted. So in this case, I added some leaves, a for sale sign, which added a bit of storytelling. This was actually a photo I took for a house that was for sale, and I thought it was pretty cool. It was all hand painted by this elderly gentleman that lived in the house, and I thought it was pretty cool. And yeah, it also meant that I had room to add like some timber, the number plate, some other little. I like to add like duct tape to my textures. You never need too much duct tape because again, like with ropes, you only need a little bit, and doubling up the UVs are never going to be noticed. And then yeah, and then an extra little decal that I added for the trailer. So that's how those bits came in. They were kind of after. So I was starting with the trim, then the unique, and then getting in anything extra that I can get just to fill in the space. So from here, again, like I'm showing you the textures, but it's not textured at this stage. From here, I'll take it into Marmoset. I don't really need to show the the bake of Marmoset and Substance Painter. Really, that's just what I do. I bake my normals down in Marmoset, and then I bring it all into Substance Painter, bake it there, and then what I'll do initially is I will just this is a finished asset, which I can just turn them all off. But what I'll uh, turn it, trying to make it so it runs as smooth as possible. So what I'll do at first is I'll just, if we can just imagine that they're not there, I'll literally just start bringing in folders, and I'll just name this fiberglass. And I'll start just adding some masks. Mask by visual. And yeah, I'll just start bringing stuff in. I'll go fiberglass interior. Oh, that's not how you spell that, but that's okay. And I'll do I guess a texture block out. And then yeah, I'll just literally start just blocking in some textures. Maybe I've got a fiberglass texture in here. Maybe I don't know. I'm not. I won't go too crazy in this because I'm sure you get the idea. But I'll start blocking it out with not just with colors like I've got here, but with proper textures, but nothing special. I'm not trying to add detail now. All I'm trying to do is add in what it is, get something represented. It's kind of just blocking it out because it's a bit of back and forth between the between painter and between Marmoset and between not at Marmoset stage. So at this stage, it's back and forth between painter and Blender or modeling package. Just to sort of get what it is. So a lot of the detail that's here, like the rusts and stuff and different things, it's not on there. But I will just sort of have a black plastic or the tire will be a black tire and some metal for the wheel or whatever. And from there, that will let us go into wrong instance of Blender. That will let us go back into Blender with our textures. We can get rid of this because you don't really need it too much, and we can start putting things back together. I definitely don't recommend using like what I'm using now. I'd use I'd duplicate it out and then just put it back together how we did model it before. We can see here I did definitely used like I would have just duplicated that over, just flipped it, like mirror modifier, flipped it over, and just that to save on space. Same with underneath here. I can't remember exactly what I did, but it would have just been I didn't need that. Player's not really going to see that, and if they do, it's not too bad anyway. Like, because I'll just fill it in, unwrap it, set my texture density, and just try and put it to even like one of these textures. I would probably even maybe you could even scale it down. I'm not sure where exactly I did. I can check after, but that's probably a bit hideous, to be honest. But I guess you get the idea. Just that's how I was trying to save space as much as possible, but without compromising on the look too much. So it's just putting everything back together really, and then from there it was going. So we've got all our unique things. We've got our motor and everything. They're essentially done, except for we need to like polish the textures later. But we've got those bits. They're our uniques. And then what comes time to coming back to our blockouts and our original our boat that's using that trim sheet, and it's just modeling it out. Let's say to our proper model. We can probably even look at the one that I did. If we isolate just this, the seats are in there, but it would just be taking our model and working out where we can have natural seams, and where we can hide seams, where we can't hide seams. I think this is if we sorry, find the best way. We can come to UV. So we can see how I've cut this up, and then I've just unwrapped it. I'm not sure exactly how it would have been unwrapped from just a simple unwrap. It's unwrapped it pretty well actually. So that's probably all I did there. Changed the texture density to the 512, and just literally just laid it out on top of there. At this stage, I don't have this beyond extent and this the pinstriping or like this writing here. It would have just been a fiberglass texture that I was mapping this to. The same with the outside of this boat. So what I'm doing here, I'm just selecting one and just selecting by the UV shells so we can actually see. And this again, I've straightened this out somewhat, but not completely. Sometimes it's a bit of a you don't have to worry too much. Like, we're not baking any of this information down, but it's so you can. When I said before to straighten out UVs, we've got a bit more flexibility when it comes to this type of thing because we're not baking anything down really. But yeah, we're using that trim sheet really. So what I would have I think I would have just if you were to unwrap this, it's gonna be a bit of a mess. You could maybe try and rectify it, and it did have some triangles there that added after, which will mess it up. But also I think I found that just unwrapping half at one time was how I did it. So I would unwrap, and then I straightened out this side. I did the same for that one, and then I joined them in the middle, which I'll demonstrate a bit more for up here. So this fiberglass boat, it is, there's no real hard edges on fiberglass boats because they're kind of how they were made is that they were formed over a mold. So it's it's not like you're going to have hard edges. So that's why I really wanted to model in a lot of this, like the bigger sort of bevels there to really sort of help that. But then that creates the issue of how to unwrap this sort of thing because if you have if I was to unwrap this whole UV shell as one, as we can see now, it is registering as one UV shell. But if we unwrap that, it'll just be except for I've got I'll clear the seams. If we unwrap that, it's a fair bit of a mess. Kind of skewed this in a weird way. Kind of probably would work to be honest. But yeah, surprising that did actually work better than I thought it would. But sometimes it won't, and I think originally it didn't for whatever reason. But what I'll do is I'll actually unwrap it in sections and then merge them together. So if we go back to, like, we've got the seam, I just sort of cut in the seams of where I assumed it would cut nicely. And then it's again, I'll just put these off to the side. You want to make sure that you're setting the texture density, which this one's all right. And then we've got this with, as you can see, I also hid this seam in this. So I've got a bit of a raised section, which helped hide a bit of a seam in there. But yeah, so again, if we just unwrap that, we see that it's like, oh, that doesn't really, that's cutting into the rest of our textures. How are we going to fit this in? And it is just trying to, I'll use the proportional editing and just try and nudge it in, rotating it, trying to, if we just move it, it's probably going to skew it pretty weirdly. But if we just try and rotate it, move it, rotate it, move it, maybe bring these up a bit. We can kind of get away with getting it. I would have probably been a lot more careful when I did it originally. And we can take this bit and then just weld them back together. And then that's gonna it's gonna get your pieces looking a lot nicer. Yeah, I don't want to bore with all the details, but of just watching me push and pull verts. But you get the idea. And now we've essentially been able to unwrap something that surprisingly did actually work all right, but a lot of cases it won't, just with an auto unwrap. So it's just sort of trying to manipulate those UVs so it will actually fit in there. So I'm actually gonna revert the scene so we can actually see what they were before. Yeah, see, it was different to my example, but it's still pretty much the same. It is still along that edge. And then I would have just done exactly the same for this side. Except for that, yeah, I would have even lined up inside a bit so it's still registering as that is the same UV seam. Same sort of thing, just so I could have the inside still flowing down but it's all just about like wrangling those UVs shells so they all sort of fit into each other and then not create too many seams. So that's how we can sort of hide seams as much as possible without having to have a hard thing breaking it up. This this rubber does help do that, but sometimes we couldn't just have a rubber edge everywhere that we wanted to break it up. It just wouldn't work. Sometimes you just can't avoid it, and in that case, that you'd want, I think, if we look at the interior, I've just sort of mapped this. Like they are not. You don't always have to have them mapped so they're all touching. But how this helps us get away with it, and you don't really notice it, is that the texture itself is pretty bland. It's not got a lot of unique stuff going. We can actually see a bit of a seam between like this. There's a bit of that dirt or grime there, and here's quite clean. You can actually see that edge. But if a player's here, they're running around shooting people, they're never going to notice that. And if they do, like, congratulations. So that's sort of a bit of a difference. But maybe if we had that sort of a transition on this edge, then it would instantly show up as a bit odd, a bit like, oh, that's a bit ugly. It's just not too good. So yeah, so that's probably where we can and can't, or why we'd want to do that as much as possible. And then for the trailer, some of the reference that I had this really had this awesome like wear at the bottom. So I knew that when I made this trailer, like the texture part for this trailer, I sort of had it in mind of it would be at least enough for 3 sides of the of this metal tubing. If we imagine how this would have been made in real life, it would have been made by the same tubing. Like this bit would be the same tube that they cut it from. This would probably be the same tube, potentially, maybe a different size or whatnot. But if we think of things in their real world manufacture, then we can sort of use that to our advantage. So all I needed really was 3 sides of this, and because of that, I was able to bring in some of that. It doesn't show up too much here, but we have got a bit of variation in the texture on the tops and bottom. So if we can imagine that this is an unwrapped 3 sides of this beam, we've got the like one side of bottom, it comes up. We've got the rust on the top and the wear on the top, and then it folds back down to the bottom. So we can essentially see that here, how I've unwrapped that. So that's just another way of like thinking about the textures. And then we've got these welds that are, so I've just got in the texture. You can't see it here because it's all pretty much normal information. But I've got this weld in the texture. So if we were to I think this one is actually tiling over the 0 to 1 space. So I've actually got that weld just naturally occurring in the metal. It looks fine. Where we can in here have the welds to the other bits of metal is I've just unwrapped it and laid it out on those welds. These welds as well would be using the exact same texture there. So because it's already on the metal, it's already the same color. It's kind of it definitely works if we look at it in the if we look at it from here, like what player's perspective, definitely reads as welds, and gonna going to be all good. So that's how I go about that sort of stuff. I'll just check back for any questions if you want to jump on. Question, hey Hamish. So you pack custom parts manually like boat engine with blenders UV tool scripts, or do you pin position UVs and the trims down? So I typically will manually place them. I do have for packing. I definitely do use UV Packmaster Pro. It is amazing. I think it was like $20, but it was worth every penny. For this sort of assets, I do it all by hand though. I don't really use it. I guess like I wouldn't be surprised if the UV Packmaster has settings that you can actually say only pack into this area. But because I'm really trying to optimize my space as much as possible, I do all the pack by hand. So yeah, and I pack it into the leftover space that I've got. Is that hopefully that answered the question? I see you typing. Thanks. No worries. Awesome. So yeah, so from there, so I've got my that's the trim. So I've got my trim sheet. I've got this. I've got my boat, the main part of my boat, essentially unwrapped and textured. I've gone in and also just made the tops of the windows and unwrapped the trailer and the wheels and put everything, all the unique parts back on and put the steering wheel back in there, and everything. And then that's when I've got essentially the overall boat. I think I may have some early screenshots. Maybe I've just sort of, yeah, this was kind of early on. Just some, like this wasn't even unwrapped. Just some really early screenshots from Marmoset. As you can see, the textures are pretty bland. They did have some of that grime in there. It was called Wave Runner instead of Beyond Extent. But yeah, so at this stage, when I've got everything roughly in, I'll bring this model into Marmoset, just to sort of see how it looks in a proper environment. Blender's awesome for like its real-time viewing. Substance Painter as well, like we can see, which is Substance Painter as well is good, but it's not the complete model. You can actually import it in here, but I just find it's easy. I don't worry about that. I just sort of jump back and forth. So at this stage, it is having that completed model and then going to Substance Painter and polishing the textures. I won't really go too deep into how I texture stuff. It's all just, yeah, it's all pretty standard stuff, just adding, yeah, texturing as texturing. If anyone's got any questions to how I do stuff, then like feel free to ask them. But I will go into some of the adding detail into the Substance Painter rather than baking it down though, just because it's maybe something a bit different way of thinking about it. Like I said, it's definitely saves me time not having to go rebake stuff if I want to change it. If we come into the, I think this is in a trim seat fabric, the vinyl, for example. I just, yeah, again, just layer all into different layers. So we've got our leather medium grain vinyl with some color to it. Add in that the crinkles. The crinkles is just I use this on 90% of my like assets. I think it's like a paper. I don't know if I can get a bigger version of it, but it's literally just a like scrunched up paper alpha. But it's perfect for crinkles and folds in stickers and fabric as well. It works on. You can just like here I've got it blurred. There, here we see like unblurred, but we blur and it does give that nice undulation to it. From there, I added in like the like just different height details. I do have some color information in here, which is like darkening those seams, and then just like the height, which gives us that seam. So should we have to make this longer than this? Like I think this is 1 meter of vinyl fabric. Should we have it longer? We'll just have a nice seam there that kind of looks like a sewing seam. And then again, I've just got it puckering at the edges. If we come into here, we can see I've just got I think it's like it's literal stitches thing. I think it was like even a ZBrush alpha. Just adding them on the tops and bottom, histogram scan to sort of get it how I want it and blurring it. So yeah, and then just adding some grime on top of that. Definitely the same thing happened with the seat itself. Maybe a bit more, but yeah, it was just a fabric. Put a fabric over top of that, and then yeah, it's just playing up all those height details. If I wanted, um, like instead of 4 panels and I wanted 3 or 5 or however many, I could easily just come in here and change it up rather than having to rebake or do a cloth simulation or something. Totally the same thing that happened for this detail that was in the window metal. Yeah, so honestly, this part is literally just going back and forth between Substance Painter and Marmoset and just trying to tweak things and bake things out. Oh, not bake things out. Like polish things and just trying to go back and forth to see how things look and really sort of polishing textures. It's all pretty straightforward. From there, that's when I sort of started bringing in some these added details. I didn't know at first what I wanted for this, so it was just sort of I've got that part, and then coming into I did it again. Coming into Blender, taking my trim sheet, of course, take my trim sheet. We can just sort of duplicate it out. And we've essentially got our sign. I think for the sign that I do have, it's got some depth to it, and I just mapped the back of it to like the wood that's there. But there's just that's how I went about that. Same with the leaves and stuff. So it's all just sort of going in from getting the base pass of it done, the middle part, just the extra details, and then the extra polish. And that's pretty much all there really is to it. It's all just just that sort of back and forth between Painter and Marmoset, just to sort of make sure it's looking all right from the like unique, the trim, and then the like the final made model. Yeah, and just adding like things like ropes and stuff from there, adding in the things, adding in the tape. I think before also like this metal here would have just been a straight cube really, but just sort of denting in some of the edges once it's all unwrapped. And yeah, that's pretty much as far as I went. One thing where adding a bit more of unique stuff to it was I did want to sort of touch on was this. I knew that this edge that was underneath here, I'm only using this this what do you call it, pinstriping here, and also added detail like behind the like the driver controls. I'm not using it anywhere else, because if I was, it would be noticeable really. So I knew that was the only way that was underneath. So that's where we could have a bit more unique detail, where it's got a bit of grime build up. I could have probably even gone like harder with it and had a more detail, just because it does sort of add that bit more of a unique look to it. So that's something as well. And then once I had all this unwrapped, like I didn't have, once I had like all the boat unwrapped, I did notice that most of it was unwrapped, and I still had a little bit left over. So it was a chance for me to add this little, like I think they're registration numbers or some sort of boat numbers that I saw in the references, to the textures, and I knew that if I put it there, it wasn't going to magically appear over here or something. And if it was, I could probably just move my texture sheets around. So it's just a way of like, I've got this space, I can use it. It's a little bit more detail, that I can add that helps it not look like that helps it look more like a unique asset than just something that's like using a trim sheet or using these sort of optimization, techniques. I think that's pretty much all I've really got to say, other than like obviously some questions that are coming through. I'll have a look. So, do you paint on flat surfaces instead of finished models, seats and stuff in the first pass and then finance? So no, actually I shouldn't have numbered that. Sebastian asked, so you paint on flat surfaces instead of finished models, seats and stuff in the first pass and then refine on a semi-modeled afterwards? No, I don't. I do just paint on the flat textures. I do just do this because I try not to have it too unique. That because you want to, especially with the stuff it's using multiple times, in trim sheets in general as well, you don't want to have too much unique wear and tear. Like if you had like a big crack in here, every time that doubled up, you'd really notice it. You can get away with it a bit. So that's probably a bit of a tangent to your question, but I do just on the flat textures, just because I do find it easier and better. And if I need to iterate, I can just look at it on the flat model, because regardless, it's still going to be using the same UVs. So I sort of try and look at it that way, if that answers that question. And then to your second question, do you usually color grade textures while combining a trim to a look, or do you do it afterwards in the finishing process? Yeah, that'd be more in the polishing. I do have a bit of an idea going into it. I think I said originally when I started this, I did really like this boat, but from a art direction process, it looked a bit wacky, having like a big red and blue boat. It looks cool in real life, but in a game it might look a bit odd. So that's why I opted for more a subtle, like one of these white boats, for a bit more, yeah, just a bit more usability. Also, if it's like a lighter color, you're going to be able to tint it easier should you want to have like material variations. It's a bit like got a bit of like a yellow tinge to it. If I was going to actually tint this in Unreal or something, then I'd even like make it even whiter and then tint it accordingly. So yeah, so it's a bit of both. I go into it with a bit of an idea of what I want color wise. I did like the sort of contrast of like the darker motor with a lighter colored boat, and then using like the rubber around to really get a bit more, to be able to play up some of these, like get a bit more visibility of like the rubber trim that's around here and play up. So yes, I had a bit of an idea going into it, but definitely tweaking after the fact. Yeah, North Star. How much time is allotted for this?
Sorry, Hamish. Can I just quickly bump in here?
Yep.
I just want to send another reminder to everyone that's listening in, to just please ask your questions in the chat, and because we're getting to the end of the session, so I think this is a perfect moment to just ask some questions before we round the session off. Sorry to interrupt, Hamish.
No worries at all. Yeah, awesome. Ask any question, even if it's not related to this and it's related to like my hybrid trim tutorial, like the escalator one. Like, yeah, I'm happy to answer anything. But yeah, North Star, how much time is allotted for this type of asset with this much complexity in a production scenario? This asset in my job, I'll totally just outsource. But if it landed on my desk, I'd probably get it. I'd probably I could probably knock it out in a couple of days, but I'd probably allocate about 3 just to be sure. Just and then if you get it done quicker, then that's awesome. But with that said, there's, especially in a production environment, a lot of the time you do, not just for this sort of thing, but for lots of assets and lots of things, you do just have to sometimes just go for it. You looking back, you may have done things differently had you do it again, but a lot of times, yeah, you do just have to, time is not you don't always have time. So it is just the thing, like, you've got the idea, you're gonna do it, just go for it. It works. It might not be like the UVs might not be 100% optimal, but you did save time, so that was optimal. So yeah, so I'm not sure if that answered the question, but it's sort of it definitely depends on the asset. But yeah, just try and, I'd say going into it, don't worry about timing now if you're just learning. Just try it out and try and get it done. But in a production environment, just, yeah, do it, get it, like, have an idea and kind of just go for it as much as you can, if that makes sense. But yeah. Yeah, if there's any other questions or if I didn't answer any of those questions, my apologies for the start of this stream. I was a bit I was a bit distracted and totally lost my train of thought, but hopefully, yeah, we got it back on track and I covered everything that you wanted to hear.
Yeah, this was really valuable, Hamish. Thank you so much. There was actually one question that I posed in the beginning when we were
Oh,
talking
what's that?
about the textile density and planning. Is how specifically do you get with your textile density, especially in like the block out part of the trim sheet?
I get, yeah, so I definitely, that's always in my mind, the texture density. I I I like working to 512 pixels per meter. Um, it's something I've come grown to. I've come grown, like, it gives me enough resolution that it still holds up quite well. If it was a first-person game, and I am currently working on a first-person game, um, it's probably not enough, but for third-person games, it is. It's plenty. It's going to give you lots of resolution and also give you lots of space on there. Like, we've got, I always think of a 2048 texture, whether it's a hybrid trim sheet, whether it's even my like unique asset, totally unique assets, or if it's a tiling like substance designer material. I try and think of it in real world dimensions. So if I'm thinking of it in the 4 meters by 4 meters, then that does help me. So when it came time to knowing that I needed to have this, the sort of the biggest part of my fiberglass was going to be just over a meter, I knew that I needed to put that 1 meter in the trim sheet. And then the rest is, yeah, just trying to gauge how much I would need. Like, say I knew I needed 3 sides of this metal at least, because I could get away with having a seam on the bottom that wouldn't get seen, and if it did, it doesn't. It still kind of reads alright. Um, So yeah, so again, I think that was like 30 centimeters because this is probably like 10 by 10 by 10. That's a 10 centimeter square bit of metal. So so I definitely do think about texture density early on, but I think of it in that real world unit. And if I was going for a different texture density, like then I would just adjust accordingly. So yeah, where it's like um, 3 meters by 3 meters, 2 meters by 2 meters, just knowing how much space I have in real world space is what helps me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always super helpful
Uh,
that you have something real to relate to, right?
yeah, yep, yeah.
Right. Awesome. First of all,
Awesome.
I want to thank you so much for doing this session. This was really helpful, and a lot of people agree with that as well. So I appreciate you taking the time and like doing all the preparation and giving us like a really cool example that we can look at too.
Yeah, totally. No, thank you very much. And if anyone has any further questions, like feel free to reach out. A few people have since I did the other tutorial, and I'm always happy to help out if I can. So yeah, so
Mhm.
that's there. Awesome.
Awesome. I'll share your portfolio in the chat so people
Mhm.
can check it out too.
Mhm.
Um, oh wait, that's a store. I mean, sort of goes to the same idea, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
um,
always tutorials on there are free. Like, don't just download them, get them. They're cool. Get them for free. They're awesome. I hope like they've helped out lots of people. So yeah, hopefully they can help out others. Yeah,
all
awesome.
right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hamish, again, and
Yeah.
thanks everyone for being here and just really being active in the chat and posting some good questions. Thanks so much to Hamish Ames for this awesome workshop. And also thank you to all of our patrons for supporting this and making this workshop happen. If you want to be one of our patrons and are just looking for more environment art resources, then you can go on and check out beyondextend.com, where we host a whole bunch of environment art resources, and you can also get access to these live workshops whenever we do them, and a whole bunch of other goodies that can help you build your career as an environment artist. So see you there.